is Jojo and I like to read. Give a Book, Give a Voice is a channel that helps young people learn new vocabulary and listen to interesting stories. The book I'm reading today is Little Jester by Helena of Fawson. A long time ago, when the world was almost 1,000 years younger than it is today, and jesters traveling the roads, playing music, and performing tricks, there was a large monastery in a city in France. A group of monks lived in the monastery. They had gone there to pray and work. The monks grew vegetables and grapes for wine. They painted beautiful pictures in the books that they made. But the most beautiful picture in the monastery was not a book. It hung in the church. It was a painting of weeping Madonna. 8 times a day, the monks went to the church to pray for the Madonna, who wept over all of the bad things that were happening in the world. On one cold, rainy night, when the monks were in the dining hall eating, there was a knock at the door. The abbot, who was in charge of the monastery, went himself to open the door. Outside the door stood a little jester. He was cold and hungry and asked them please to let him in. The abbot did not like jesters. He told the boy to go away. At that very moment, a monk named Philippe happened to pass by. Reverend Abbot, please let the boy come in and warm himself. Please let me give him some soup, said Philippe. The abbot thought for a while. Then he agreed, but he gave Philippe strict orders to show the jester to the door as soon as he had eaten. Then the abbot went up to his chamber to study. Philippe took the boy to the dining hall. The good-hearted monks found all kinds of tasty food for the little jester. They gave him soup, freshly baked bread, a jug of milk, eggs, cheese, chicken pie, pancakes with honey, fruit compote, and almond cake. The boy ate until he was so full he could not swallow another mouthful. Then he pushed his plate away and smiled. The monks were curious about this little jester. Are you really a jester? They asked. The boy nodded. Will you show us some tricks? Philippe asked. The boy was happy to oblige. He would put on a real show as a way of thanking the monks for a tasty meal. The boy took his empty soup bowl and with a flick of the wrist, he sent it spinning to the floor. The bowl landed on his edge and he quickly jumped on it. He started to bounce on the bowl at the same time as he kept rolling it with his feet, as if he had been standing on a wheel. Bravo! Encore! The monks cried. Then the boy took out a flute out of his bag. He played a merry tune while he rolled the bowl with himself on it out of the dining hall, through the long dark hallways towards the large church. The monks followed him with great excitement. All the way up to the high altar of the church he rolled. Then he jumped on it so that everybody would be able to see him. Then he began to play and dance and juggle, do somersaults, and perform magic tricks while the monks laughed aloud and clapped their hands. Up in the chamber, the abbot was studying. Suddenly he heard a strange noise. It sounded like music. Actually, no. It sounded like someone laughing. Now it sounded like applause. The abbot went to the door and listened. He could not figure out what the noise was. Finally, he decided to go down to see what the monks were up to. The dining hall was empty. The abbot was very surprised. He looked in the kitchen, in the library, and in the dormitory, but there was no one to be found anywhere. Then he heard a strange noise again. It came from the church. The abbot hurried over. When the abbot saw the boy and all the monks up by the altar, he was furious. "Philippe, you dunderhead! What have you done?" he shouted. The abbot rushed up to grab hold of the little jester and throw him out. But at that very moment, the monks pointed toward the altar and cried, "A miracle! Look, a miracle! Look, a miracle!" The abbot was looking up at the altar. His face turned white. What was happening was truly a miracle. Weeping Madonna was no longer weeping. It was as if an invisible hand had repainted the most beautiful picture in the monastery. The Madonna was smiling. She was almost laughing as she looked down from her place above the altar at the little jester who had shown her his very best tricks. Then the abbot realized that he had been wrong in wanting to throw the jester out. He begged the boy to forgive him and said, "Ask something of the monastery. Whatever you ask, we will give you, for you made the weeping Madonna smile." At first, the boy did not know what to ask for. He was warm and full, so the only thing he needed for himself was a bed to sleep in. But when he had thought for a while, he said, "I wish that you would welcome everyone who knocks at the doors of the monastery, that you would let them warm themselves and give them something to eat, as you did with me." The abbot promised, and he kept his word. From that day on, the doors of the monastery were always open to jesters, the poor, the homeless, and all the other cold and hungry people who traveled the roads. And what about the boy? He continued on his way through the world and became a famous jester. Everywhere he traveled, people gathered around to watch his tricks. He made them laugh and forget their troubles for a while. Sometimes you could hear someone in the crowd whisper, "Look, that's the boy who made the weeping Madonna laugh."